So, hey guys, I had the pleasure of speaking with a former Canadian military serviceman, Matt from Liberty North, this week. And I always want to reach out to the men that I see that have the courage to stand up and speak and bring voice to the chaos and the craziness that's going on. And there's something really interesting about all of us who are on this path. And it is the second body of work, I believe, where we are being called to clean up our own mess, clean up our bodies, and really become higher versions of ourselves in order to prepare for all that's to come. So I think you're going to really enjoy this. He's very inspiring. And I hope that he leads other men to do the same. And I believe that he is. So please enjoy. All right. Welcome to the Unschooling the Mind podcast and private community Q&A. Today we have a gentleman named Matt on who I consider, the embodiment of a Canadian hero because there are so few men speaking out. So when I personally see something or truth resonates at a frequency that not only we hear but we can feel. And so how I ended up finding you, I can't remember, but I saw a post where you were calling the school and saying, hey, I'm thinking about putting my kids into school. Let me know. What do you think? What is a woman? What are you teaching over there about genders? Can you tell me biologically? And I mean, you could just see the rhetoric. She's like, I'm sorry, what do you mean by that? What do you actually mean? Right. And it was so good. I didn't know at that time that your first account had been wiped out by the censorious platform of Instagram and Meta. But that seems par for the course these days. But I was really excited to connect with you because obviously we're both, Canadians up here
I,
in.
I actually thought you were American. I learned that from Zach the other day. I
Oh,
was like, oh,
really?
she's Canadian.
Did
That's
you?
great. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, back and forth between Calgary, the next new 15-minute city, and Invermere, BC. So, it's we're really definitely in a communist takeover up here. It's really hard for even our American friends to understand. They don't quite understand the severity of what's happening, and you obviously do. But when we wrote the title for this Lone Wolf to Men Rising, it was because I can't say that I don't know some incredible men out in the freedom community, because I do. And of course, we have the convoy, and of course, there's people in pockets scattered that are, trying to lead by example, but it's so rare. Like, there's more people packing CFL games and the pubs still,
Oh,
right? And so when you awaken to what's actually happening and you're aware and you try to live your old life, like I can't go to football games. Like my kids play football, right? Like I'll watch the kids games, of course, but going out in the world and trying to live as if we're not in a full blown war right now is very difficult,
well,
you know?
it's the strangest phenomenon that I've seen. I grew up with like tough rural country Canadian boys who I thought were tough, and I mean physically 220 pounds, 6'2" boys. Big Canadian boys, who I thought were alpha males. They went to the sports game and they drank beer and you didn't. That's what we grew up thinking was alpha male. But when COVID happened, and I saw these guys in the army in my regiment, I saw these tough men crumble into nothing. There was nothing inside. They didn't even recognize anything was wrong.
Yeah.
Which even if they are strong somewhere, they didn't even have the sensors to detect what was right or wrong. And that made me start thinking new definition of what to be confident and what toughness is. And it it's really pervasive, that whole sports and entertainment that has taken over the vast majority of people, and I think they're still too comfortable in that realm, and that's
Hmm.
why there's just you called me a lone wolf because I kind of do feel that way. My best friends that I grew up with didn't uh didn't perform when the time came necessary, didn't even know it was time. you know they
Yeah.
were willing
Yeah.
to go to Afghanistan for a cause they barely understood,
Right.
but
Right.
it's such a strange phenomenon.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the bread and circus program, right?
Oh yeah.
The
Yeah.
the the sedation program that they have us all under. So, it's much easier to choose that path than to actually wake up and realize you're in the Truman Show and that, we've been asleep at the wheel for many generations here. So tell us, especially for our viewers, kind of who you are and how you got here.
Okay, so I had a origin story like most of us in the community here. So I've I've always been kind of aware of things. I was a only child and my parents were much older. So I kind of had to figure out things on my own. I didn't have an older brother or sister to kind of pass on music and clothing and current events to me. I was always finding things out for myself. So I think I became naturally inquisitive and creative in some ways because of that. So I always had my eye on things. I got kicked out of school in elementary school all the time for questioning teachers, and I was first one in my elementary school to get suspended for yelling at a teacher, not being crazy, but just antagonizing. There was just something about me that was always anti-authoritarian, which is strange because I joined the army, but I think my sense of patriotism or my misguided sense of patriotism at the time overruled that. And I still had disciplinary issues when I was in the military. Anyway, so I'll get to my origin story. Um, I was around the 14th year of my military career, and the COVID rollout hit, and I decided, like many other people, not to do the vaccine. And it was the way that I was treated by my own guys, like walking out. They were like ashamed of us, the people that were the it was so strange. The way they were thinking at it is you're abandoning the fight here. We're supposed to be the soldiers. And so there was obviously a lot of hard feelings amongst us. So the vaccine mandates were certainly overreach for me. And when they had us on base, they had us on, 2 weeks, you can't leave. And they didn't know what they were doing. Oh, everyone go home now, even though we just quarantined you guys on base for 3 weeks. So when I went home, I went to go see my grandmother who lives in the city of Toronto in an old folks home, and they wouldn't let me see her. And I hadn't seen her in months because I'd been on an army base, and they wouldn't let me see her. I was pretty angry, so I left, and I went back to base a week later, and she passed away, and I never got to see her. So that's how I became very angry at the system. And then every cause, everything is going wrong in the country. So I kind of jumped on every cause. And then my cousin um, started having issues with his school board and his children, and I wanted to get involved with that because he's very passive himself, and he kind of said, "What do I say to my teacher?" And I said, "Why don't you let me make a phone call?" And then so I started making these phone calls and trying to expose what was really going on there because it was crazy how pervasive that was. I thought it was one teacher out of every 100 schools somewhere downtown Toronto or Edmonton or Montreal, but it was popping up in the countrysides and conservative communities up here and farming communities. So I started making those phone calls, and I thought, you know what? I was part of a public institution. I know all they care about is public image, so I'll just ruin their public image. So
Mm.
I just started calling school boards, Toronto police. I don't know if you guys saw that video. I think it was one of the top videos, most viral videos of the year. I rolled up on a Toronto cop car that was
Oh,
painted
yeah.
in transgender flag colors. And I had asked the officer if they were cops or if they identify as cops. And that went so viral that the Toronto police now teach that at their Ontario or it is now taught as a whatever for the new recruits at the Ontario police. They use that video as how would you as a training seminar video basically. How would you deal with this guy? And all my videos are blacklisted. I personally think the Toronto police have something to do with my Instagram always getting shut down. So that's just me. So that's my I guess that's my origin story. My grandma was the big thing there, and not so much, I was on my way out of the army anyways. I'd been to a few funerals at that point of people that were taking their lives, and that starts, begging the question: Was Afghanistan worth it? And we saw the Biden pull out. How after 20 years, it was like they didn't even care about that war after, and just left everybody and everything. And I was like, well, that's how they think about us, you know. Rwanda, what was Canada doing there? What were we doing in Haiti? What were we doing in Cyprus, Somalia? I mean, we would have been so much better off if we were never in any of those places. And I don't want to digress too much into that, but I was kind of already starting to get whatever pilled about
Mm,
that kind of stuff. And so it was COVID was the cherry on the top, and then my grandmother was what made me angry and wanted,
mhm,
wanted to get out there. And people think I'm confident. They're like, "Oh, Matt, you can do all these things out in public," and I like that, and I want to try to get other guys to see me do it, normalize that behavior, and then maybe they can find a pair and go start doing those kind of things themselves. But for me, it was at the beginning, at least, it was just anger was just overruling me. It wasn't even confidence. I saw authority figures, and I said, I got to embarrass this guy somehow. I don't know.
mhm.
I just hate feeling helpless, I guess, and that's what this government and law, the authority did to me. So
Wow.
yeah,
Well, I really want to honor that story about your grandma. It's very sad and it's unfortunate that it's so common. Like my grandpa too. My grandma used to go and to the old folks home and feed him because he wouldn't eat otherwise, like every day. And so, when COVID happened, she wasn't allowed to go in. And so after 6 weeks he died, and everyone's like, he died of COVID, and my grandma still believes he died of COVID. I'm like, he died of a broken heart and nobody came and nobody cared and no one fed him, and that's why he died. Like, whether it
uh,
was COVID or a cold, or I mean, it's maddening. It's maddening. I have a friend who lived in Malaysia who came home to see his dad who was dying, and because it was like 9 days into his quarantine and not the 2 weeks, they wouldn't let him into the hospital, and the dad died. Like, it's just, how have we let this happen? Like, I look at you and I think to myself, like, wow, we are so desperate for leadership, male leadership. Like, I know as a woman, I'm speaking on behalf, I'm not speaking for all women, but I know a lot in this community have been at this for a long time. And Simon's on here. He teaches a lot about fifth generational warfare. And I'm very versed in Jason Christoph's work and understanding the attack on the male and the female over the last 50, 60 years. And so I know why, but I guess I'm looking for some hope, because when I see you, I feel hopeful. Like, I'm like, are there lots of you out there? Tell us more. Are you coming out of the woodworks? Do you see people waking up? Are you going to band together? Because we'll support you. Like, we just need the men to rise, right?
yep. No, I totally agree. But you have to, when I start saying that to other men, it just becomes, oh, you think you're tougher than me? It's very hard to convey those things, and then some of them are tougher than me physically, and oh, so you're telling me how to live? Oh, you're stronger than me. So it becomes very personal with guys when you start trying to break them into this. So there are like-minded guys out there, and I am finding more and more of them. And a lot of them are my old friends that I never even knew about, which is good. Like I hadn't seen a good friend of mine, Jamie, in over 20 years, and he connected to me through my some of my videos. And he's like, "You're going viral, man. I agree with everything." I was like, "All right, man. We gotta be friends again." So we that's what I guess Diagolon was kind of. I'm not, Diagolon is just a group of guys that started off as a meme and a joke, and Jeremy kind of organized that together. But there's a lot of like-minded guys there, and they're growing. There's all sorts of movements that are growing. There's libertarian movements of people that just agree with our kind of views too. There's so many people. When I was at the trucker convoys, they weren't conservative people. They weren't churchgoers. It was everybody. It was
Everybody.
so that it is growing, and there's a lag, I think, and I think you might experience this with things too. When you're at the cutting edge of this information and it becomes your life, you're the first to know about it in a way. And there's this weird lag that the masses get maybe 3 or 4 years later. Like I'm kind of over Trump, but 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I was all about Trump, right?
Oh God, me too. I was
Yeah,
right
okay,
there.
exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I was on my that's where I was in my journey. But now people are just coming to Trump. Like, like I'm like,
Yeah,
he already
yeah.
had a presidency. I'm like, are you kidding? I'm way over him now, but there's this weird lag to the masses, I guess, from people like us that decide to make this kind of information a part of their life. But
Yeah,
that's
and did
frustrating. So sometimes I think you just have to wait. A lot of these guys, we're going to lose our country. Nobody thinks this way. I'm like, just give them 5 more years. They might catch up.
mm-hmm.
So you
Well,
never know. Everyone's in a
I
journey.
it's true. We're all on a different timeline. And, even just Monday, I had some people call me and they're like, That's it. We're packing, we're leaving, we're moving. Like that's it. That's what we're doing. We've decided, and they're just kind of in a state of panic, almost like they just realized that, we're in this war and like that's what they're doing. And I'm like, that's great. And they're like, we wish you could come. We know you have kids and businesses and husband and this and that and things going on. And I was like, I really believe that God will give me the green light. I think I'm pretty on, like you said, the cutting edge of the information. And when it's time
Right.
to go, I'll get out. But I never thought, I don't know if you were as naive as I was. I certainly was a Trump fan. I would say the first like year, like 2020. I was like, oh, the fall of cabal. This all makes sense. Oh
Mm,
my God, he's our savior. This is what it is. I wasn't into politics prior to, especially American politics, but I was like, this is it.
mhm.
Then, studying under Jason Christoff, understanding mind control, understanding the blue and red mind control program, understanding that there's just one big group and we're not invited into it. And they pretend
Well,
that I was like,
there's historical reference to that in Canada for the Uniparty. When
mhm,
John A. Macdonald set up the first government in Canada, although it ended up being a conservative party, it was called the Liberal Conservative Party of Canada, hyphenated.
mm,
That was the
mm,
name of the party. Our first party was, and if you read the explanation as to why that was, it was to obscure the differences between philosophies, to
wow,
and so at
wow.
some point in our history, we were just one uniparty, and I think that tradition um, has stayed in a way,
Yeah,
and,
yeah. It's
I'm
just turned into a
beyond.
show.
Yeah, I'm be like, I used to be it's tough because I used to call myself like a civic patriot. I respected our public institutions. I respected the Bill of Rights, the charter, and then I just saw how all worthless it was and how fragile it was. It could just anything could break it, and I said, "Well, perhaps we need a new system." And I don't know what that system is, but I knew enough that I had to quit drinking, quit
Mm,
smoking cigarettes, quit smoking weed. Um, After I not broke up, but after I departed with my last girlfriend, I said, "Not, I'm never doing that again until I'm married." So
yeah.
I literally, I didn't, I knew I was a slave of the system, but I didn't want to be a slave of temptation anymore. So I got rid of all that and kind of became free of mind.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's what I'm trying to work on right now. Is if you can become free of mind and free of temptation and free of mental slaveries and habits and stuff like that, you're already halfway there. And,
Wow.
you know,
Yeah, I
so
do. I'm so glad you brought this up. That's why we call it unschooling the mind, because I started unschooling my kids and trying to learn about that philosophy. And I realized, oh my God, shit, I have a ton of work to do. It's the parents that need the help, right? We're the
right.
most conditioned. But it's very true. After a while, I would say a good solid 2 years of protesting. After the convoy, maybe 6 months after, I was just done, and I thought to myself, all these people are here and they're angry and they've got their smoke in their mouth and their beer in their hand and they're yelling at the government. And I had to start doing those internal changes. Like, where do I see coercion and pushing the agenda and all these things with my own kids and my own family? Like, where, started cleaning up my act, quitting drinking, quitting caffeine, all of
Mhm.
these things, started investigating that. Yeah, great. You avoided the vaccine. Okay, good for you. But where else are they siphoning your energy and killing you so slowly? What else have we fell prey to?
Fast
Because
food. Yep,
everything's a trap.
yep.
Everything we're surrounded by, the pot, the coffee, the alcohol, like, it's and that's where we come with this unschooling the mind. And that is actually like the key thread that I see with people that are having real, that's why I say it's a spiritual awakening. And I think
Oh,
some of the people that are sleeping still, it's a decision. And not everybody's here to wake up or to elevate their consciousness. I believe that probably some of these people are here to, the ones that have passed away, unfortunately, to maybe help humanity see. I don't know what the bigger picture is, only God knows, but it is very cool that all of these people from different walks of life are having this kind of same experience, hearing this calling, answering this calling to rise up, to shed these old beliefs, these old habits, the mental slavery, like you talked about. That's the only way out of us, is for us, like, really to change the level of consciousness, is when we'll bring on new leadership. We can't, Pierre Polyev is not going to save the day. Like, people, we don't have these,
no, I
you know,
if you even understand anything about basic economics too, there's nothing they can do about the housing market. Even if Pierre Polyev were to start building homes, it's not going to be another 15 years until that gets fixed. 20 years, and it won't. And
Mhm.
that's so. that's a very small example, but it's a practical one that I think people can understand, is that the biggest thing that he's riding on is fixing the housing is impossible. It's not, he can't do it. Even if he builds more houses than Trudeau, he cannot fix that problem, and he's telling us he can. So it's
Hmm.
it's just a small one, but those people have to get over that. But again, I have to watch that because I don't have a system that's viable to replace it with. I don't want to be someone who just tears something down and doesn't have the tools to build again, right? So I'm very
Hmm.
careful about what I say and what I do. I just I know what I can do, and I my I convinced my folks to move into an even smaller town out in the country, and they got themselves 6 acres, and they're living there. And then I cleared some land, and now I'm living on a cabin on their property on the back 40 there,
Yeah.
and we're building another cabin for my friend and his family. So we're just going to do what we can do as a family. We already got the solar going up. We've got 2 extra propane. We've got firewood for two winters. So
Hmm.
we're just being as self-sustainable as possible, and that's the best way I can tell anybody else. If you want to replace the system, be your own system. Grow your farm, grow your food, hunt your food, trap your food. Um, if you're going to have to buy it, which many people go to a local farm, go to a farmer's market, go to a butcher, get real meat, get real food. We go next door and get 12 of the best eggs ever from our
Hmm.
neighbors for $5, and we trade them sometimes, whatever it is. And that's what we got going on here. And if you can just do that if everybody could be self-sustainable to the most, even if you live in the city, you know, um, Get
Find your
buy some
people.
solar, yeah, get a wood burning stove, if anything you can do to be self-sustainable in your in spiritually or physically, I think is the best system. Like I say, be the system that you want to replace. So,
Yeah, it's really important that you're bringing light to that because when I was on the Zach's podcast the other day, he was saying, "How do you think this is going to go?" And what about this and that? And I just said, like, I don't have the answers to
right,
what it's going to look like. I do understand that the internet has been an incredible resource for us to find each other because we're like spread out all over the world, really. But it's just as important, if not more important, to build in our physical domain, our communities, right? And so that's always happening. I love your story that I didn't even understand about you letting go of the mental slavery and the habits that were probably weighing you down. I think that could be probably the most powerful thing that you're sharing with other men or in public, even more so than calling the schools. I mean, that's fun because it's shocking and it gets people out of their sleep state.
right,
But like literally the way you're living your life is actually like by example. Like you're here to lead by example because this is the way. We're not going to go burn down parliament and
right. You'll scare good
BLM the
people. There's
country.
there's
Yeah.
good people with good intentions that you'll just scare away, and they'll go to the other side because they don't know, or what, a side that's not conducive to helping society. So I say be stoic, be strong and healthy, be confident, be interested, be useful, be consistent, be a community pillar or a family man, and people will follow you. That you don't even need politics or a philosophy at that point. If they just see you as that dude or
Hmm.
that woman, you're laughing, you know.
Hmm.
So if you can just be those things, and you can't be those things if you're high on weed or strung out on coke, or even eating McDonald's and Burger King every day, you can't be that guy. So just
Hmm.
be the best. And I'm not saying I'm still struggling with a lot. Obviously, we all are. There's stuff
Hmm.
that I will never talk about publicly, but we all struggle. We all have our internal demons, and I'm working
Yeah.
on those. I do let anger is my big one, and that's
Hmm.
why I kind of miss the weed sometimes, because it would be a good it would level me out sometimes. But anger is something I'm dealing with right now, and I just have to. It's making me be more stoic. The more I don't internalize it, like I work out now, or I go for a run, or I go out in the middle of the night and I just start chopping trees down and hauling them back to the truck way out in the middle of nowhere. Or I go, like,
Hmm.
this weekend right after this, if I'm all decked out in bush gear. I'm going on a 5-day solo canoe because I have to escape right now. My anger's been building up, so I'm just going on a 5-day, and my buddy's going to meet me on the third day out there at a checkpoint. on his canoe. So we're gonna go out, and as soon as I'm packed up here, I'm already got the truck running, and I'm jumping right in the truck and I'm out of here. So I'm learning with ways to deal with the anger, So,
Yeah,
but
you're
yeah,
self-regulating.
yeah.
You're alchemizing that energy. And so that's the energy that I feel like we're missing. Like, what do you think is going to happen with other men? Like, I mean, obviously there's been an attack to misplace your anger, your righteous anger, and sedate yourself or go to the bread and circus program or Netflix and chill and smoke the weed and do all these things, because it's like the pirates at the top don't really want you to know what's going on. They want you to check out, and then if you do, they can't have you get angry. I mean,
Hmm.
their biggest threat. I mean, I always think about all these protests. I'd be there with grandmas and moms and, like, not just the trucker convoy, but other ones. And, I was like, what would it be like if 5,000 men showed up? You know what I mean? Just the men. Like, it would be a whole different response. Like, that's what we're kind of missing. But we need men who can self-regulate and keep that anger intact, right? But
Right.
still be powerful enough that they're a threat when they come together against the enemy.
I told the Jordan Peterson line on that one sometimes, where he talks about you can be a dangerous beast if you can control, if you're a mature man who can control his anger.
Mhm.
Um, I don't, in response to your question though, I don't know. I think some dudes are too angry and they don't have the check that I have, and or they're not trying to, and I think that's a trap also, because
Mhm.
even if we were to go into some full scale violent revolution of people, they're gonna win. They want that almost to happen. That means complete lockdowns. They can instill any laws, martial law that they want. I think that's also a trap, trying to get us too angry, where we start acting irrationally. And I understand. Trust me, I understand why people are they're no longer irrationally angry about the system and the way things are going. I understand that, but I think people got to take a step back and just kind of figure this out right now. Get with your communities and be the change that you want. As lame as that sounds, every time I say it, it's kind of.
It sounds like
But
a cliche, but it
yeah, right.
really
Like
is.
yeah,
Be the
but like
change you want to see, man in the
I'm
mirror.
serious. I know every president has probably said that, but yeah, no.
No, but it really is true, right? Like, what we can control. Like, sometimes I'm so upset when I'm walking outside these fucking chemtrails. They just make me
Oh,
crazy.
dude.
And I get so upset. And I'm like, yesterday I was sitting at the football field and I'm just like, and look at everybody. They're just watching the football. Like, I just like, you know.
Yeah.
But I remember that, hey, when I started researching this, they've been wrapping this up since in the 90s. In the 90s, I was going to high school. I wasn't looking at chemtrails. So, we're all on different timelines here. But yeah,
That's not for when I was talking about that leg, people aren't going to come around to that for another 5-20 years. I don't
you
think
think
that.
so?
Oh yeah, that stuff's my bread and butter, like harp, and I love all that stuff, but I have given up talking about that as a
Oh,
serious
yeah,
topic to people outside. That they just, it's more of a, the way they look at you, and I'm like, no,
I know.
seriously, dude, you're
I
looking
know.
at it right now, and they're like,
I
oh,
know.
wow. They don't
I
have
know.
any rational argument. It's almost like catching a computer program in real time. It's like,
Yeah.
dude, you're not even articulating an argument as to why. You're spurging about some, if it was real, the news would talk about it or something. Like I don't
I
even know
know.
how to. And those actually, it's so frustrating because those arguments, or whatever they are that they throw out at you, you can't actually say anything to them. And you're like, oh, I I I don't even know what to say to that kind of um lack of understanding or comprehension.
Right.
It's like they use. It's almost like they're so arrogant that they utilize their ignorance as like as a tool of debate. It's like you
Yeah.
can't use it.
You
It's like, "Oh,
can't
I
go
don't know,
there.
so it's not true. Like, I don't know anything about you're talking about, therefore I'm probably right." It's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay." And then that's why I don't even, but like I have anybody that's interested in that kind of stuff, I have all day for.
You've gone down the rabbit holes.
Oh
It's
yeah,
you got all the details.
every rabbit hole. Yeah.
Well, it's like when Zach asked me the other day, so what's your argument when people say this to you? I was like, oh, I don't argue with anybody. You have to be at a certain level of awareness to even connect with me.
Oh
Like,
yeah, no.
I'm like a magnet. I don't go looking for people anymore. I tried that in 2020, 2021. I'm not doing that
Yeah, that's
anymore.
yeah, that was me at the beginning of my journey when the information was all new to me. I
Yeah,
wanted to
yeah,
go test it out on people and be like, let's see if they know. That was kind
yeah.
of my personality, right? But No, I don't even bother. That's why I'm running away to the. I'm not running away, but that's why I'm going to the woods for 5 days.
You're going to self-regulate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So.
and truth can't really be told. It has to be discovered. People, even yesterday somebody was asking me about a certain health protocol and I said, "Oh, you should try this, maybe look at this." And before I used to be wanting to like send them and I was like, you can look it up and go to Rumble, just look up this and you'll find a whole bunch of stuff. Happy trails. Like people have to go do their own work because they're intellectually lazy, right? But we've been trained like that in the school system. And it's kind of like when you were saying about the politics, I feel like the school system is the same. When I started diving deep into the dark history, and the same players, the same ruling class elite families are behind it, and they coalesced with government and industry to protect their industry and created the public school system. So when people are out there fighting, I'm like, there's no reform.
Mhm.
We cannot, like, I don't feel like we can reform the conservatives and the
No.
liberals. Like, I'm
No.
just like, this is what it is in place and it's working perfectly for them.
Yeah.
Right. And so I believe it's the same thing I say with unschooling is I don't know what the system is or the answer or the solution, but I know that we are naturally bound to bring our kids home and live with them harmoniously and they can like learn beside us and how like I know that that's a natural thing that we did 200 years ago
Yeah,
easily.
no, absolutely, and I think one of the biggest things I noticed between homeschooled children, which I know a lot of, and public school children is I think there's something in the public school that just sucks the intrigue and interest out of kids because kids that go to the public school, they're interested in just the things that they're supposed to be interested in: sports, entertainment, movies, um, mainstream stuff, and they never care about anything. And then you meet homeschool kids. Oh, what book is that? Oh, wow, that's a neat book. And they're asking questions about everything in your house, and they're inquisitive, and to a point where they're annoying. But that's great. That's like that's a that's what you're supposed to be. I think one of my biggest downfalls was I had so many interests that I didn't know what direction to go for so long. And I think
Mhm.
uh, that's a that's one of the things you got to watch out for when you have children that are super interested in everything. At some point, you got to say, okay, you got to pick one of these things and become a master at it. You don't have to, but it it could help you for your purpose in life. But for me, it was a hindrance never to know what path to take when I was equally interested in everything. I was equally interested in science and technology as I was in religion and God, and as much as health and physics or fitness and as and then music and everything. I was just equally interested in everything was a hobby, and I have a great general knowledge base because of that, but I never really became a master of any trade
Oh
because
yeah,
of that.
but
Yeah.
you're still young, Matt, and you know what? You're
Yeah.
probably just a manifesting generator. I'm going to get all your birth information after this,
Oh,
and I'm
oh,
going to
here we
find
go.
out for
Okay,
you.
that'd be great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to put that to rest. You're going to feel
I'm a
really good about
cusper.
that.
Is that a big deal? I'm
I
a
don't know.
cusper.
I don't know
I'm
about
born on
that.
the cusp. But yeah.
Oh, you're born on the cusp. Okay, well, we'll
Yeah.
see. But we just actually before this had a call about unschooling and human design is this body of work that kind of shows you like what your design is. And so I'm sure that you're a manifesting generator. We'll see. Because that's like someone who kind of is always like just a million ideas. And yeah, you guys settle with one and finish it.
I've got
But
like
yeah.
800 books of ideas written down.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But there's place for that. There's room for that. We need that too. So yeah, well, I'll get your details later.
All right, sweet.
Wow. Okay. I feel really inspired by you and mostly your journey of self-awareness and letting go of habits and mental slavery is the most beautiful thing about this story because I wasn't really sure how deep we would go, but that really is the solution. I think that is your strongest suit of how you're going to inspire other people. Almost like going from, okay, I'm posting on Instagram. I'm showing people things are going viral. They're seeing how I'm acting. Okay, great. Then your Instagram's getting taken away, the censorship, and then it's like, okay, well, what now? What can I do? And it's like, oh, I could be the highest version of myself. And now all of a sudden, you start to like change things through your frequency, through your aura, through your energy, right? People are going to see you in your community. Oh, they're building this, even hearing this podcast. Oh, he's getting his eggs and he's going on there. And maybe I can do this too, or that's what I need to focus on. People need a focus right now. Like, they're just like, overwhelmed with everything. And so you're just localizing everything. power within yourself first, and then out to your family, and then out to your friends, and out to your local community. And that's very powerful.
And it's just a re-realization for some people. They know that they can do all these things and that they, here in Ontario, I tell people, it's actually one of the most unregulated places for homeschooling in the world. And people are like,
Hmm.
"What, in Canada? They don't there's no,
Yeah.
that communist country still allows homeschooling?" I'm like, "No, it's fine, dude. You can do
Yeah.
it." And they're like, "Oh, I didn't even know that was an option." So sometimes it's just a re-realization for people. They know these things are there. Like, another buddy of mine in Toronto, I said, "I'm going hunting." He's like, "You have a gun?" And I was like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
dude, this is Canada.
Yeah.
We're the second most armed, nation in the West." And he goes, "Oh, yeah, yeah, I guess we are known as hunters." And I was like, "Dude, like,
Yeah.
wow, you didn't even know that?" And now he goes out, skeet shooting, and he's getting into hunting, years later.
So
So,
good.
it
Oh,
just people
so good.
just need to know get back to the basics sometimes in some ways, I guess, I don't
That's
know.
what it is, back to the basics. And I think the reason with homeschool it's so lenient here is because everyone here we've all been asleep at the wheel and such sheep. And we've had in the last 100 years only peace in this country. So we've lost the generational knowledge and wisdom, I think purposefully, on what communism looks like, what fifth generational warfare might look like, what hunting for your own food, how it's important, how gun ownership, I didn't know anything about that. I would have considered myself very liberal when it came to guns prior to 2020. And then I was out there studying my book, getting my gun license, shooting stuff, like getting ready, right? Like I just very quickly realized what I need to survive. Okay, I need a fireplace. Okay, this is why they're restricting us. Like it can
Yeah,
be
there's a
very
reason
intense.
they build houses without fireplaces
Oh yeah.
anymore. Yeah, so,
Oh yeah.
that's a
And all
big
this electric.
self-sustainer right there. That's
I
heat
know.
and cooking, and,
I know.
people don't want that, so
I know it's unbelievable, but anyway, well, thank you. We're gonna
that
say
was
goodbye.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's great.
I'm going to leave all of your the ways that people can get contact with you, I guess, because well, you just had your Instagram, but you started a new one,
Yeah,
so we'll
it
put that in there.
okay. Yeah, it's just YouTube and Instagram right
And
now that I'm
YouTube? Okay,
yeah, yeah.
perfect. So we'll have that in the show notes for everybody. And I want to thank you for your time. And we're going to move into our private Q&A right now. So thank you, Matt.
Okay, cool. That was great.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed that. I certainly did. It's great to make these kinds of connections with other people all around the world, but especially in my home country of commie Canada. So, if you are interested in being involved or speaking directly with some of my guests through private Q&A, you can join one of our two communities. I have an app. One side of the app is free. It costs nothing to be involved, and I have dropped workshops and sample coaching, and we have live Q&As with all of our coaches that come in there. All you have to do is go to www.tashafishman.com/community. It'll be in the show notes. And if you're interested in more premium coaching and being kind of walked through this process of awakening with yourself and your kids and becoming a higher version of yourself, we are all there in a private member association. And I have an entire workshop on that in the free community that you can check out as well. So look forward to the next time, you guys. Until then, stay free and unschool. Keep unschooling your own minds.